And we are live. My name is Amir Zendanam. We are here with my friend Robert Palma. We're going to be talking about building hemp houses today. What's up, Robert?
What's up, Amir?
How you doing today? All right, let's get this Instagram stream started right now too. So if you're watching this on YouTube, give us 1 second. All right, I am live, Robert. So join me when you can over there. We'll just
I
do
gotta
the intro.
find you.
Hey, what's up? My name is Amir Zendanam. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about building hemp houses with my friend Robert Palma. We are just waiting for him right now to join us on this live. We're on Instagram Live right now. We're on YouTube Live. Robert, I see you in there. We're going to have a great conversation about building hemp houses. Let's go.
Cool. This is
all right. All right, Robert, I got you in there. Let's go. Cool. All right, Robert, can you make sure to turn down your volume on your phone so there's no echo?
good.
Awesome. Perfect. Yo, Robert, what's up, man?
What's up, Amir? What's up, brother?
Hey, I'm glad we are talking about this on video. Robert, I've known you for, I don't know, 5 years now. I've seen you grow in the cannabis industry. You're very big in the industrial hemp space as well. It's been awesome watching you grow. And over the last few months, as I've been getting prepared to buy property and build hemp houses, because that's what I wanted to do for many years. And now I have the resources to do so. So I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And that's exactly what we're doing. And Robert, when I started thinking about the hemp houses turning from a dream into a reality, Robert was the first person I thought to contact about it. And of course, he had 1,000,001 resources. So Robert, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do in the industry.
Yeah, definitely, Amir. Thank you for the intro. So I mean, like Amir said, I first met Amir. I just got started in the cannabis industry. I just met him here in California, and we worked in the THC side for a little bit for a couple of years, and then about 2018, 2019, I started getting into hemp, and became part of Industrial Hemp Alliance, and eventually started my own company, currently called the Hemp OZ Fund. So we're basically creating like a venture capital fund for the hemp industry, and we're going to use that to build a lot of infrastructure that we need for the hemp industry. And so, my knowledge prior to that, I really call myself like a hemp supply chain analyst. So I pretty much know a lot about hemp, how that one crop can be split to all the raw materials and it goes to all those thousands of products. So happy to be here today. Happy to educate, our communities about hemp and hemp-free homes, and love it. Do it, bro.
Hey, okay. Awesome. So, this wasn't even a reality up until recently. If you wanted to build a home out of hemp, say anywhere past before 5 years ago, you were going to be dealing with a really hard time logistically with sourcing all of the materials. But today, the hemp industry has evolved so much that somebody like me, who doesn't even have that much money that I'm putting into this, can build my own hemp home. So, Robert, tell me a little about what you've seen on your side with the evolution of hemp, not just hemp homes, but hemp building materials in general over the last 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, it's amazing, dude. The logistics journey is insane. So, like 3 to 5 years ago, pretty much all the hemp herd source came from France or the European Union. France being one of the biggest suppliers out there.
And hemp herd, for people who don't know, is what you're using as that material to make the hempcrete, which is like the inside stalk of the plant.
Yeah, exactly. And it really looks like mulch, just to get a visual of what it looks like. And so, most of it came from France. Some of it came from China, but it all really depends on quality and shipping and all stuff like that. But that was the case for the first 3 to 5 years. Even still to today, a lot of the hempcrete companies still use France hemp herd just because it was a higher quality. We're starting to fix that, So in 2018, industrial hemp was legalized. So now it's treated as a crop like corn and soy and whatnot. And so, but then it took a couple of years
Yeah,
to get
and
the
let
infrastructure.
add on to that real quick. Sorry. Industrial hemp in 2018 in the United States was federally legalized, which essentially opened the floodgates for the massive hemp industry you've seen grow in the United States over the last 3 years.
Exactly, and that explains my transition from I was in cannabis, and once it got legalized, like boom, ready to go and get set. So yeah, even when it was legalized 2018, it still took a year or two just to get the decorticated equipment in the United States to even process it and then filter down to get the right hemp herd. Uh, I say 2020 was like the breakout year for hemp, industrial hemp, meaning that we had actual industrial hemp varieties being grown, fiber varieties, and then also with the processing infrastructure to do it all. And I think in the last year we do like 15, 20,000 acres of hemp fiber versus upwards of 100,000 acres for CBD hemp. So that's kind of the markup.
Whoa.
Yeah. No, and what's even crazier was in 2018, CBD hemp boom, like upwards of 250,000 acres. But that's when we had the big like CBD bust, like all these hemp farmers went out of business because it just produced too much.
Yeah,
Um,
I remember.
yeah. Yeah, and so it's wild, So now CBD hemp's coming down, but hemp fiber varieties are going up. So last year was 25,000. This year we're probably almost double that. But what's cool about what we're talking about with hemp herd is that it's unanimous. No matter what you're using, the hemp fiber variety or the CBD hemp variety, you can still get the hemp herd. There's debate on the insulation properties differences between the two, meaning that hemp fiber gives you a better hemp herd for insulation as hempcrete versus the CBD hemp. But again, it depends on what you're doing it for. If you're doing your own house and whatnot, use the CBD hemp. Why? It's because 90% of all these CBD hemp farms are throwing away their hemp stocks.
That's correct.
Are burning it, right? So there's a whole business in just collecting these hemp stocks from these farms, bring it to someone that can chop it down and like being one of those tree chopper machines. Boom, you got automatic hemp herd. And so big opportunities there.
Wow, yeah. That's a very good point. There is the byproduct waste of the hemp industry. Yeah, you brought up a really important point. Is it's a very untapped part of the industry, and if anybody's looking for an in into this industry of something that needs to get done, it is figuring out what to do with the excess of the hemp plant that's not being used. When I was at the hemp farm that we sourced Specker's CBD from last year in Kentucky, they were talking about that, like how after they extract the material even to make the CBD and stuff, they throw that away. When he was saying, he's like, they could give it back to us and we could feed our cows hemp. So, yeah. But there's nobody who does that part of the supply chain in the industry yet.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, it's also there's right now Montana is making the big push to make hemp seed grain for cattle, and initial results are looking great. I think they've been doing it for like about a couple of 6 months or so now, and then yeah, just endless opportunities that we can pursue. It's just the biggest holdup right now is like the prototype R&D phase of it, meaning that if you want to do like hemp seed for cattle, for example, you got to do some testing, right? Someone has to come up with the money who's going to do the testing on the seeds, make sure there's not THC in the seeds, and give it to the cows and do the whole experiment of it. And that costs money that a lot of people just don't have that upfront cost to get into. So it's like the chicken and egg problem. But even with the waste, with the hemp herd, beyond making it for hempcrete, you can chop it up. You can actually crush into a powder, and it's a great absorbent material. So the oil industry uses crushed up hemp herd in a powder form, basically to suck up oil spills. You can also
whoa, hold up! I didn't know that. Yeah. What did you just say about the oil industry?
The oil industry basically buys crushed hemp herd into a powder form, so a hemp herd crushed to a powder, and they use that to absorb oil spills.
Wow.
Big, really big. And so actually, there's a video online where I could probably pull it up and send you later.
Yeah,
very cool. But the big company that basically was pioneering that move was the company called Hemp Inc., one of the first big processors in the United States, in North Carolina. And that was one of their first major product lines, was crushed hemp herd as an absorbent material. Beyond that, if you crush the hemp herd into a finer product where you basically get the fibers, you can make paper with that. And okay, even beyond that, right? In the hemp plant, the majority of the cellulose is stored in the hemp herd, and that's where they get the paper from. But you can use cellulose for plastics and a lot of other things. And so the cellulose industry itself is a multi-trillion-dollar industry. Remember, $100 billion industry. It's massive. So yeah, my whole point with all this is like showing you like they're throwing away the super valuable material because there's no one to sell to. There's no one to process this hemp herd into the next stage. And I'm sure there's probably people out there that can do it. They just don't know. That's really a lot of connecting the dots, supply chain issues. But yeah, it's insane. The value right now is pretty well. So right now, the going price for hemp herd is around like 30 cents a pound. It's a pretty safe number around there. So think about like, these hundreds of thousands of hemp CBD farms out there, probably get a good couple 100 pounds per acre. A lot of hemp herd, a lot of money being just thrown away just because no one's connecting dots. As a supply chain guy, it's extremely frustrating, let me tell you.
Wow. See, for the people watching, it's important to note that the cannabis industry is evolved in certain areas of the industry, like the arena that I'm currently in, which is finished products. So that's why, you look at the industry as a consumer and you're just going to assume all of this stuff is taken care of, the industry's evolved, because you look and you're like, well, there's 70 million CBD companies every time I go to this store or that store, and there's so many different brands. But, that's why me personally, I mean, while I'm still doing Specker, I'm shifting into these different arenas of the hemp industry as well, because there are so many gaps in the supply chain. Because like we were saying earlier, it's only been a little over 3 years since we have had this access. Before that, if people, focus on hemp and cannabis before that, you'd see that we always talked about these ideas like hemp makes paper, you can make hemp houses, hemp is a biofuel, hemp plastics. Like there are all these memes about that, right? But now it is accessible for the average consumer. And that's really what's transitioning. So, people ask me all the time about getting into the cannabis industry, but they should be looking into parts of the industry that are, I guess, less like exotic and romanticized, like selling weed or like, just selling CBD, and, like they're not as, pretty parts of the industry. They're very back end parts of the industry. But if we ever want to get to a place with, things like hemp houses or hemp bioplastics becoming a thing, then these parts of the supply chain need to be closed in on more. And that's how we're going to get these things to become mass scale producible, which we currently, because of the supply chain disconnects, we don't have that mass production yet because of that.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's, again, like the cannabis industry was in the beginning. It's all chicken and egg problem. It's like, oh yeah, we could do all these things, but who's going to cover with the cost of the equipment and such and so forth. But all in all, when there's big problems, there's big opportunities to make a lot of money in solving those problems. And so that's really the opportunity that basically anyone gets into the hemp space now is, granted, you got to do a lot of work. You got to make a lot of connections and put all this stuff together. But you do that, your competitive advantage in the marketplace is insane. You're almost one-on-one. You become a hemp paper supplier, you're one-on-one.
Yeah, nobody's competing with you, dude. Yeah, you corner the market just by being in it,
Yeah, exactly. And it's amazing to think how early on we are. So different market analysts say that if hemp CBDs are 100,000 acres, hemp fiber varieties, it should be over 1 million acres. Actually, matter of fact, last time we grew hemp fiber varieties in America was 1940s for World War II, and it was roughly, I think, 40,000 acres. And so what I did, based on population and GDP size back then, I scaled it to where we should be at today, and we should be over 1 million acres. That's just what, constant growth with coordination, population, and GDP. Not even where we should be, concerning that, we have all these climate change problems and the benefits of what hemp can do. We really should be even higher than 1 million acres. And I said last year we did 25,000. So I think it's about a 40x deficit to where we should be. So it's insane. It's absolutely insane. Opportunities here are crazy.
Wow. And to add on to what you were saying about the last time hemp was being grown on a large scale industrially, that was in World War II, where the United States government, a few years after making it nearly impossible and pretty much banning hemp, World War II started, and the US government was like, ah, shit, we just banned this plant, and now we have to bring it back. And then they made a propaganda video. There's a United States government propaganda video called Hemp for Victory. And it was about how hemp can help win World War II. And then right after that ended, it was kind of just like closed off on the hemp again, you know? So that's the crazy thing about hemp prohibition, is that the United States government has fully realized from day one that this shit is extremely beneficial. But, because of special interests and very evil special interests, it's not dominant. And we've only been 3 years into what we should have been like over 100 years into. I mean, hemp, before it was made nearly impossible to get, and I don't say it was banned, because they just made it really, really hard to get and to use. So nobody did it, Yeah. So, that's a part of American history. And essentially, we've deviated away from our history as Americans. And now, over these last 3 years, we're coming back into what really is a major part of American culture and just world history in general.
Yeah, totally. One of the things I love the most, like one of the most interesting facts I love, I learned back in the days of the 13 colonies, right? It's taking it way back here. Somewhere between that early time frame, you could actually pay your taxes with hemp seeds. That's how valuable it was. It was legit currency.
Whoa.
Because like you used it for everything. So it's like, yeah, I can take money, or I can just use the thing that we're using for everything. That's it's like a petrodollar essentially, but with a hemp seed. And so that blew my mind.
Whoa. That's so cool. Oh my God. And, it's important to note too, that hemp was one of the first agricultural crops, if not the first agricultural crop that led us into the agricultural revolution. So this goes back 8,000 to 10,000 years. Even before that, I mean, this plant, not just from a psychoactive side. The psychoactive side has been a major part of human history as well. But, finding hemp rope from like 8,000 BC. So it's only the last 100 years or so that this plant has been forced out of society, again, because of corrupt special interests. It has nothing to do with health. It has nothing to do with anything moral or legitimate. It just has to do with this industry can easily outcompete all these industries.
Yep. Exactly.
So therefore, get rid of it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing that gives me the most goosebumps. That's most exciting, is that like this plant, like we co-evolved with this plant for thousands, 10,000 plus years, and now it's coming back. And I feel like the resurgence of its energy into our ecosystem, the society, and the world, it's going to change the planet. And like with all the things that it can do, and it's just vibrations alone, everything has a vibration to it. And the other day I walked into a hemp field, like my first hemp fiber field here in California, and I walked into it. Everyone, like, it's an experience, like walking into a Disney World, like something that you can feel that these plants are alive, and the energy they give off, you just know they're here to dominate. You just know this plant dominates, dude. And not even that, like it just dominates because even on the farm, right? Like most plants need pesticides or herbicides because they try to compete out against the weeds. And it doesn't happen with hemp fiber plants because it basically grows so quickly that it outcovers all the weeds and the weeds die.
And they clean the soil in the process.
Exactly. Phytoremediation. This plant, that's what I love about this plant, right? It's like people only hear the topic that it can do so many things. It's like 10,000, 50,000 plus products. But it's not the fact that it can just make those products. It does it way better. Like less chemicals, less water. Like it's just the whole 9 yards of everything about it.
Yeah, about phytoremediation, they found that in Chernobyl, there were these wild hemp plants growing, and in those areas, they were cleaning up the radioactive soil. So that's the power that hemp has. It can even, I mean, what you brought up earlier about the oil spills, that just blew my mind. And that got me thinking about the Chernobyl thing. So it's like the worst types of natural or man-made disasters that could happen, hemp is there to save the day. Okay, so Robert, so explain to me, what is the process of building a hemp home? And actually, let's talk about that company that you showed me, Coexist Build, because they have that new hemp house kit that you can build starting at like $26,900 or something.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, it really kind of depends. The process depends on what you're looking for. Like, if you are by yourself on your own farm, your strategy would be different rather than if you're trying to build like a development. So you're going to clarify where you want me to go with.
Right, and that's why I went with I transitioned into the Coexist Build, like tiny home essentially, because that's something that you can technically build as a house, as a office space. I mean, it's made as an office space. It's 140 square feet. They essentially, when you order it, they deliver all the parts to you as a kit, and you put the house together.
Gotcha. Yeah, totally. So yeah, that one's the most, the simplest version. So basically, in the scenario we were talking about before, you can go to any CBD hemp farm and store away their stocks, take their stuff, throw it through a wood chipper. You get that, and basically all you have to do is filter out the bigger chunks of mulch of the hemp herds that we're talking about. So you're looking for like basically 1-inch pieces. So filter out all the dust and little pieces out of it, and that's what you use for your hemp herd. Then you mix that with limestone, which Florida has. Basically, you dig a hole in Florida, you find limestone, and water. And there's a certain ratio. I think it's like 1 pound of hemp per 1 pound of lime to 4 pounds of water or something. Or that's not pounds per se. It's by volume. Okay, and you mix it all together, and it comes out somewhat like as a crete. It's like soft and moldable. And what you do with this kit is basically this kit provides you the form, and you get 2 pieces of wood like this, and you fill it in with the hempcrete. And what you do what you call tamping, which is basically you tamp the edges like closest to the wood on all sides, and then you let that sit, and then you do the middle piece, and then basically just keep stacking like that. So once this, actually you have to let that dry. After you tamp it, you let it dry, and then you can take the wood off and then move it up. And you do the same process, keep dumping hempcrete and then tamping it, and then boom. And you do like that across the whole wall, across your own house, and you build up. It's pretty easy. Like you can do it in a day, essentially. That's a mini house for sure.
Yeah, it's 140 square feet. I mean, I'm thinking about getting one of those as well. But it just. I
would say the benefits really of the hempcrete, if people don't know, is the insulation value per inch. Like this is the exterior, and you have temperature. Like hot outside, your wall, interior, right? The R value, which is your temperature resistance per inch, is like almost double what you see in glass fiber, and that's basically the biggest key to energy saving, right? But also the limestone has a lot of benefits too. With the lime is basically I don't know if it's acidic or alkalinic, one of those two. I forgot which way it goes. That basically prevents any like mold or bugs living in the walls because of the alkalinity, I think, in the wall. And so
it's the way that the air flows through the walls. It won't allow for a moldy environment.
Exactly. Okay, there you go. That inside too. And so the air, you have a humidity balance. And so as there's so many benefits to hempcrete and compared to traditional glass fiber insulation that is one of the biggest benefits to making hempcrete homes.
And that insulation that you're talking about, that glass fiber insulation, is toxic. It's plastic and petroleum based.
Yeah. You'll ever look at your glass fiber installation, it has warnings on it, cancer warnings, especially here in California, but pretty much anywhere in Florida as well too. And off gases, basically.
So everything. Even, at like taking it into another level, I'm the consumer. The person who's building the house is dealing with a toxic environment themselves. So what the hempcrete build allows for is a much safer and healthier environment for the people that are actually making that house as well.
Exactly. And more energy efficient, which is benefiting you as a person, your dollar in your pocket, but also the whole world and saving energy costs.
Awesome. And I mean, I know currently building a hemp home is slightly more expensive, but what do you know about the price differentials between, say I'm going to make a bigger house, say 4,000 square feet, and what would be the price differentials of, getting a normal wood, plastic, petroleum house
Yeah.
versus a hempcrete house?
Yeah. So about a year or two ago, when most of the hemp houses I knew were being developed, it was about 20% more than your traditional. But now the price of wood and whole everybody's supply chain getting all messed up, prices increasing. Now it's about comparable. Actually, probably even cheaper now because everything in the hemp industry is pretty much getting cheaper because everything is scaling up, right? So as I last heard it a couple months ago, basically the price of a hemp create home and a traditional home is either equivalent or lesser.
Wow. In 3 years, guys, 3 years. And this is a perfect example of what an unregulated industry can do as far as industry evolution. When you just leave it up to the businesses and individuals of the industry, I mean, the hemp industry is nobody's regulating this shit for the most part. So it's still a very open and free industry. And that's why we see all of the cannabis supply chain evolving at a rapid pace.
Yeah, definitely. And so the lack of regulation has been its benefits. Basically like speed in the market, right? Everything's getting figured out faster, but it also has its problems. Like we're talking about, like earlier we were talking about. There's a manufacturer out in Kentucky who develops hemp wood, and super interesting product. He basically gets the hemp stalks right off the fields. He mixes it with a soy glue essentially, and he puts it in a press, and he presses a hemp block. So it's basically like a 5 foot block of compressed hemp stalks, and he's in the hardness factor of it is like harder than any traditional wood out there. And he said in a previous like investor video call that it's stronger than our traditional wood, but the process to certify that wood for home building costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, and so it doesn't make sense for him to do it right now. But so I'm saying, like the lack of regulation creates that problem, right? Like the to break into the construction market for hemp is difficult because there's lack of regulation, because no one wants to pay that upfront cost to get it done. But yeah, like I said, pros and cons with it.
You're absolutely right. I mean, and me on my side of the industry, finished products, while we don't have that many regulations to deal with, a lot of the times the lack of regulatory framework makes it so that my business is constantly getting impeded on, not by the government, by other corporations who want to only work with businesses that have a strict regulatory framework, which is why CBD companies get censored so often. I actually have the Hempwood Instagram up right now. They made a post last month about Janka hardness, and it's they showed the different types of wood. They have black cherry, black walnut, white oak, hickory, and hemp wood. And you all can check out this website. It's hempwood.com, and they're hempwood on Instagram. I've been following them for a while now, just seeing their evolution. And it says, do you know what LBF means, Robert?
Depending on how it
That's
was
the
context.
That's the Janka heart. The rating is 2200 LBF.
I think it's pound force.
Pound force. Okay, cool. Pounds force. Yeah.
Okay.
So what this post says is that black cherry is 950 pounds force, hickory is 1820 pounds force, and hempwood is 2200 pounds force. So, what it says here with the Janka rating of 2200 pounds force, hempwood is the perfect candidate for hardwood flooring. Hempwood is even 20% harder than hickory.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, they have a great video basically using a hammer and hitting a piece of oak wood, I believe, or hickory, I'm not sure. They hit it, and then you can see the indent from the hammer, and they hit the hemp wood, and nothing. Can't scratch it.
I have that video open right in front of me right now, actually. Yeah. So, I mean, it just goes to show you. And there's, that video of, I think it's Henry Ford. He's taking the
Yeah,
sledgehammer to the hemp car, and nothing happens to it at all. There's no dents at all. So, yeah, what you said earlier is that it's so exponentially better than everything else.
exactly.
It's
And that's
it's
that.
like we need
Like
to.
also remember that. So like you're talking about performance metrics, like strength wise, it's out competing the whole market, right? But now you got to think about the full context of it. Is that what does it take to produce that plank, right? We did that with hemp in 4 months. How long did it take you to make the tree, right? I don't know. I'm a hickory
Yeah, like
expert.
how
So
long does
15
it take
years.
to grow an oak tree compared
Yeah,
to a hemp plant,
exactly. And how many years? So this is a man-made product essentially. They bind hemp stalks together, right? Like I think it started a company 2 or 3 years ago. So like, what more improvements can you make in the either the compression, the binder, like, to improve it even further to where it's at today? So this is saying like hemp across the board is going to dominate the entire like multiple industries.
Yeah, and to add on, usually the wood from the trees, they'll add these special toxic coatings and things like that to them
Yeah,
to keep them more fresh and things like that.
yeah, exactly. That's crazy, man.
Wow. So let me ask you, what do you see shifting over the next 3 to 5 years in the not just the hemp construction space, but I mean hemp clothes. I've been seeing a lot of hemp clothes, hemp bioplastics, biofuels. I don't know if you've seen anything about that, but what do you see with this evolution over the next 3 to 5 years? We've evolved this much over these 3 years. I can't imagine what's going to happen over the next three.
Yeah. So I can tell. I know for sure hemp fiber is gonna be one of the slowest industries to develop because there's just so many steps involved taking from the hemp plant and processing it, all the different times you have to do it to make a textile grade hemp fiber, and then spinning it into the weaving it to make a piece of clothing. So a lot of pieces of equipment, a lot of infrastructure to be built there. I think the hemp bioplastics is going to be one of the biggest ones, right? Because plastics is pollution is one of our biggest problems. Hemp is a very easable. It basically fits into the supply chain very easily. You crush the hemp into a powder and then use that to basically fill in traditional plastic. And there's more formulation you can make to make it 100% bioplastic. But what I was referring to earlier is basically they just mix like 10-20% of hemp into traditional plastics to reduce the amount of plastic in the plastic per se. So that's going to be like I think that one of the easiest industries to penetrate. Also with the construction industry, using the hempcrete as an insulation rather than like a building material, like nothing structural, right? So you have your same structural beams, whether it's steel or wood, and you basically use the hempcrete as an insulation. That's going to be a major industry again because the benefits we talked about earlier. Um, so those are the two big sectors
Is
that we're
that
looking.
is the hemp insulation, is that what Coexist has that's called the hemp blanket?
Um, it could be, yeah. Basically, I mean, I'm not 100% on their hemp blanket product,
It
but
says like bat insulation for retrofit and new
yeah,
construction. That would be what
yeah.
you're talking about, right?
No, so you can use hempcrete as insulation, but they also have the hemp fiber in a non-woven bat material that's also used as insulation. But I understand that the hempcrete is a better insulator than the hemp fiber bat. I think it depends on the
Oh,
application.
interesting.
I'm gonna turn on the light real
So
quick.
cool. Oh my, this is such a cool conversation. I'm so glad we're having it. So we also have hemp blocks. So would hemp
Mm-hmm.
blocks be, how do the so what are the different parts of uh like what do you need to make with hemp, the different types of things to put together a whole hemp house essentially, because we have hemp blocks and we have hemp insulation and we have the hemp lime, the hempcrete that you can mold in yourself. So there are all these different hemp pieces to the house.
Yeah, yeah. So there's like a lot of different ways you can build a hempcrete house. So you can do like hempcrete blocks, basically like Lego pieces. You put it together, and then you kind of like I'm not sure exactly how you bind them. Basically, fill in those little cracks.
It's the same as bricks. So I've seen how they make it. It would
Basically.
be the same, same as you would put regular bricks together.
Yeah, and then there's the form casting we talked about earlier, where you create a form and you just fill in the hempcrete into that way. Same thing, but now you got the spray version of that. And then you also have what I'm most excited for is actually pre-built panels. So basically, you lay out a whole wall and you put the hempcrete into the whole wall, and then you just lift the wall up into the house. I think that's going to give it the most scalability into it all.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's how they do warehouses, So I think you're trying to like scale and trying to like the benefit I think really of hempcrete houses is that we can build housing very cheaply. And so like I think we should stick with that rather than try to like go luxury or whatever. Like if you're going luxury, hempcrete blocks is probably a way to go. So the with casting with wood, it's pretty slow. You got to like takes time for everything to dry and to build up. Hempcrete blocks you go pretty fast. But I said that with the pre-built panels, you just tilt up, four sides, four things to house, boom, ready to go, and just knocking out development and showing people that we can build hempcrete.
Okay, so you were recently telling me about hemp office buildings and industrial type buildings with hemp. What would you be making those with?
So you would definitely have a steel structure, and then you would just use hempcrete insulation, hemp lime. They call it hempcrete, but it's really hemp lime in the water.
Okay. So that's interesting. Okay. So you're saying if you want to make like a multi-million-dollar house, then you would recommend hemp blocks.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Because most like very, like luxurious houses like that, they're like multi-dimensional shape. They get like multiple floors and like just the way everything's set up is not traditional box style. And so hempcrete blocks gives that flexibility to move walls around and stuff like that. But to do that with casting, like to make all that the wall side casting, and it takes a long time to do that. And also, it's actually pretty new, but it's actually pretty well developed. They actually have a lot of hempcrete 3D printers coming out, and so that's another big option that we can.
How does that work?
You basically have like different ways for the there's like some type of supply, right? Where you can have it as a hopper on top of it, or you can have it pre-mixed already, and then it's just feeding through a tube. Basically, it's like a giant 3D printer with a nozzle like 3 inches wide, and it just goes and prints out your whole house. And so they've already seen that. I know like 2 or 3 companies actually already testing it out.
That's so, bro. We used to talk about this shit like 7, 8 years ago. Like we're gonna 3D print hemp houses, and people are like, "Yo, fucking crazy. That's never gonna happen." And I'm like, "Holy fuck! It's actually a reality now." Like, whoa.
That's what I'm saying.
Whoa. That came quick.
Bro. It did. Like I'm saying, like exactly what Amir's saying. 2 years ago, it was like a fantasy. Like we could do
yeah.
And like now I'm seeing like, bro, there's 2 or 3 companies doing it. Like they already did the prototypes.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
This
is. It's actually I think the biggest advantage is making it, like I said, is scaling and making cheap affordable housing with hempcrete. It's the biggest problem, right? You need affordable housing. Let's just do that and do with hemp, and you just build like 10 3D printers and let it run through a whole fucking the desert and just build fucking housing for people who need it.
Oh man, Robert, you're really helping with this land development project I'm doing here. I'm like, all right, that's how we're gonna build the 20 houses in a row type thing. I'm like, God, how am I gonna logistically build like dozens of hemp houses? And I'm like, oh, there it is. There's the solution.
And here's another cool thing. I have a buddy Rico. He's really big about like energy and stuff like that, and he hates box houses, right? And he says like energy, nothing in nature really is a square. Actually, I did get him on that though. There's a mineral I think called bismuth that is actually square. I don't know if you've seen it, but side joke. All right, so but the energy, right, is like round, circular, it flows, right? But our housing is square, and that's why you always see like in the corners of your housing you have spider webs, right? Because there's dead energy there. So what 3D printing allows you to create circular homes, right? So energy flows, air flows, and all that. So another really big advantage that the world hasn't really seen it because it's difficult to make round surfaces.
Wow. Okay. What are these 3D printing hemp companies? Do you know one of their names off the top of your head? And do you know the cost of these things? Like if I was going to get a 3D printed hemp house, Do you know how much that would cost, like per square foot or whatever? Do they have pricing like that?
I don't know. Most of them are still in development phase.
Okay.
It basically takes a lot of time to get the formulation correct, where you can basically stack the layers without it falling over because it needs to harden at a certain time. And so I said, like, they're all of them I know are in the prototype phase. Like, they're still doing the test runs. It's not like, hit me up, I'm ready to go kind of a thing. Yeah, and even then, like, it depends on how much housing you develop, or would it make sense to either own it, lease it, the 3D printer of it, you know. But yeah, I don't really know.
Wow.
I would just imagine it's cheaper because basically one of the biggest costs in any construction project is labor. So
right,
labor, you're saving a good 50%.
Wow. Wow. There's so much happening in the. You see, it's crazy too, because you know the industry is evolving so fast that you know. I feel like I just learned some new things about the industry where I was like, oh shit, that happened already? Like, why didn't I hear about that? Because things are just going so fast and there's so many things to know. And there's every week there's a new cannabinoid isolate now that like you have to research and, you know, like, now it's like every week there's a new building style for hemp. And it's
a lot.
Wow.
That's why I don't know if I made it clear in the beginning that, you know, I'm not an expert in any one topic in hemp. I try to keep up with all the trends, like all the technologies across the board and what's happening. And it gives me the biggest understanding of the industry overall. That's why I go for it.
Yeah, Robert said before we started this, he's like, look, I'm no expert. I said, listen, bro, like I wouldn't be talking to you on video, you know, to the public if I did not think you were one of the top people in what we're talking about, you know? So you definitely know what you're talking about, Robert, you know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I try.
Wow. So, you know about my goal of getting this land and starting the first. I hope I'm the first. I mean, I don't see anybody else doing a land development project where it's just hemp. So I'm very excited about that. So I'm very appreciative that you have.
No, yeah, I would say, yeah, you know, I'm with you. You know, like I definitely want to do something similar. So like we talked about before, you want to do it in Florida, I want to do it in Texas. You know, we'll just Airbnb, share our properties together. You know, your community is welcome, my community, and you know, we'll help the same in Florida. I'm actually from Florida, so like, you know, I know the whole culture and vibe out there. So yeah, definitely. And you know, my recommendation actually with all that is I thought about this, like how we want to build these hempcrete homes, right? All these options, and I really do think building it by hand with the people that actually be living there is going to be the best thing. There's a sense of gratitude that you have, like, I made this, I own this, you know, like not some machine made it, not somebody else made it, like I did it. And it's like that sense of gratitude and like ownership of it takes the community to another level.
That's actually why I was so drawn to that hemp house kit, because I realized, well, shit, I have to do that, like with my own hands. Like it's not going to come like, oh shit. And that's why I was really drawn to it. I mean, yeah, if you're gonna have something that revolutionary, you know, that's so brand new. I mean, it's brand new in the cheaper consumer. Like, it's important to note that hemp houses are not new. Even through prohibition over the last many decades, people across the world have built hemp homes. You know, you can go on YouTube and type in hemp homes and see all these old videos from over 10 years ago and things of people making their hemp homes. It's just, that's the important distinction that we're making here now, is that for the first time in recent history, it's accessible to the average person, not somebody who has like a multi-million-dollar budget, so they have to go hire some, you know, hemp artist contractor guy, and it's going to cost you a shitload of money. You know, that's what I was saying with this hemp house kit. It starts at $26,900, and you know, that's pretty affordable for a hemp house, you know.
Yeah,
for a hemp starter little mini home, you know.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I love this quote I heard one time. It was something like they got these like natives from some island, right? And they introduced them to America. And when they found out that it's like, it takes you 30 years to pay off your home, it's like, and back where they live on the island, It's like we just invite our friends over and build a house in a day, and I own it. That just blew my mind. I was like, wow, like these guys build a house in a day when Americans are taking 30 years to fucking pay off. It's like crazy. So, talking about these affordable homes, $26,000, probably another like couple, the labor, whatever. You're less sub 100,000. Like try to find any housing in America sub 100,000 that's healthy, that's energy efficient. You get the whole 9 yards in this little package. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and the more I learn about construction, the more I learn how dangerous it is for our health. Like all of these houses and office buildings that we spend so much of our lives inside of. I mean, I don't even know what this paint is made out of. It's probably some toxic chemical petroleum based filth mash mix that is causing cellular damage, and I'm breathing in microplastics at the same time, and you don't get that from hemp.
No, exactly. And that's like the reality. Like, people like, that sounds crazy, Amir. How could you be saying that? And like, let me just put it this way. You know how like it takes like after years your paint degrades or to chip off? What made the paint weaker is that it's actually like its atoms are just evacuating from it. It's leaving, right? And that's what we're consuming. That's what Amir is talking about. So it's a very real thing. But it just happens so slowly. It's at a small scale.
Oh my God, that's another level I didn't even think about. Like shit. Yeah, you're inhaling those particles, man.
Exactly, and it's not, and that's like the best case. Mold. Like I know in Florida, it's a big problem. It's a really big problem. And again, it's just, you can't even understand like the health benefits this could bring. Like, all of our infrastructure is built from hempcrete. We can't. It's unfathomable.
Wow. So these hempcrete houses would arguably be the most beneficial in these tropic areas that are extremely humid because of that insulation.
Yep, exactly. Especially in Florida.
Wow.
Like something very strange. I don't know if it's my family or whatnot, but like in Florida, they keep the AC like cold. Like I don't know what but out here in Cali, it's like we're more natural. Let the open the windows kind of a thing. And so what happens when you use AC to cool down is basically the humidity makes it harder to cool, right? And so if you had hempcrete that allows the airflow between and balances the humidity, your energy costs again go down because of that. So again, like hempcrete homes in Florida, game's up for sure.
That's something I realized when I was in the South last month, is that people keep their AC on cold all day, all day and all night. It doesn't turn off.
It doesn't. And it's not like, 75, like just keep it. No, like I need it cold. And it's not below 70. I'm hot. I'm like, dude, like what's wrong with people? Yeah, so it's gonna help a lot. 100%. It's gonna help a lot. Cool. And again, and what's most beautiful about this, what people don't even don't understand. We're talking about hemp. We're talking about one thing. We're going crazy on one thing, but what's crazy that there's this whole, all the rest of the plant is actually probably 5-10 times more valuable than the hemp herd. So we're talking about disrupting the construction industry and all those basic benefits. Yeah, that's like our waste. Yeah, just take the hemp herd and go build hemp.
And that's just from the waste of the hemp that you're getting all that.
Exactly. We're not even getting into the seeds and the fibers. That's through the prime stuff that we can make a lot of cool stuff with. And so it's like when you understand the full scope of what the hemp crop can do, it's over. It's domination. This plant will dominate the entire planet, guaranteed.
That's my life goal. Make sure that plant dominates this entire planet once again, as it has done for many, many generations before modern history.
Exactly. And, get on that. That's something that I realized when I first learned about hemp. I was like, wow, this thing is going to dominate. Like, it's going to take over industries. Just a frame of reference, right? So like, when I learned about hemp, very common that it says it can make about 50,000 products. I was like, holy shit, sounds like a lot, right? Let me compare that to something. So I look at the oil industry and it said oil can make about 8,000 products. I'm like, holy shit, we're talking about like 5 to 10x what the oil industry is doing, number of products. Whoa. I was like, holy fuck, that's gonna take over the game, right? So like, I was like, my biggest fear was that these giant corporations, or whatever you want to call it, they can take over the hemp industry and dominate how they do with banking, with agriculture, with the plastics. And like all those industries, they're basically dominated by 3 or 4 players. And so I was like, we cannot let that happen to hemp. Like this opportunity is an opportunity that we can like lift like millions of people's boats, right? Everyone having a hemp business, stuff like that, can lift some people out the water. So like my focus since I first got into the hemp industry was like, how can we create a system, or systems to create this kind of like decentralized cooperative in the hemp industry. So like no 1, 2, 3 players can dominate it, right? It's something that needs to be shared by everyone. And I realized through like mathematics and just even like just human DNA almost is like the cooperative structure is undefeatable. It really almost is, right? But just people by wanting to work together, you by what do you call this? The efficiency you get through volume, right? Economics of scale, through having a lot of people working together in the hemp industry, will outcompete anyone who's trying to like do it by themselves and like try to dominate, right? It's just that it's also something unique to the cannabis industry itself is like there's a kind of culture against the big guys, and so I think it's also going to really help and kind of make sure that this stays to the people who really need it the most.
Yeah, you bring up an extremely interesting point. First of all, I did not know that about the differences between how much less the petroleum products could make. When I thought you were going to say, I thought you were going to give me a higher number that was a little close to hemp, because so many products have some kind of petroleum-based ingredient in it. Your makeups, your foods, your medicines, all of these things have some kind of petroleum-based ingredient, if not full petroleum-based ingredients in there. So many different ingredients that you get in your products, you unknowingly are using petroleum. Like, for example, I use vitamin E in my products, in the Specker lotion that I make, and I specifically source natural vitamin E from an olive oil derivative, which makes my price at least 10 times more than like a soy, wheat, or petroleum-based vitamin E. So as the consumer, you should know that these ingredients, sometimes you'll see vitamin E on your skincare product and you'll say, wow, it's vitamin E, but they don't mention that it's a petroleum or soy derivative vitamin E. And then, that's why actually I specify DL alpha tocopherol on my vitamin E, so you know that it's a natural vitamin E, which nobody really does because most of the players are using wheat, soy, or petroleum. And that's just one ingredient, one example. So you're unknowingly using petroleum products in a lot of your life without ever really knowing it. And it's interesting too, because the reason people haven't been able to, my analysis of why these big, essentially oil companies, pharmaceutical companies, why they have a hard time in the hemp industry is because this is an industry where you have to know people, you have to form relationships. It's word of mouth still, hardcore reputation-based industry where I'm not going to do business with somebody just because they have a nice website and a nice company and 100 employees. Like, that's how the other part of the world works. That's not how our industry works. So, the way our industry works is I'm going to see Robert is the only person who follows these guys. I'm going to message him and ask about their personality. And, and then if they don't have a good personality, he's going to tell me, and then I'm probably not going to work with them. And the thing is, when you come from these outside industries, which in the hemp space, a lot of the outside industry people coming in is like finance, pharmaceuticals, farming, and oil. I remember too, Robert, like a few years ago, there was a big push by a few top oil executives to get into the hemp space and kind of try to corner parts of the space. And I think that they realize this is not as easy as just throwing a shitload of money at something and then hoping that it works out, because part of that supply chain being so disconnected currently means that just throwing blanket money on top of the industry won't do anything because the chain's not connected. So you have to know every part of that chain,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember a couple of years ago, I heard back then CBD isolate trading was insane,
Oh my
and I heard
God.
back
I
then,
know when you could make like thousands of dollars extra off 1 kilo, like selling 1 kilo. God, what a
it was
criminal time in the industry.
yeah, like some people know, like a couple of years, like 4 years ago, you could find CBD isolate going for 12, 15,000 a kilogram, and now it's under $500.
Yep. Yep.
Swallow that craziness.
I the first kilo that I bought like small portions off of was over $40 a gram. There was isolate that I was seeing, CBD isolate, 4 years ago, that was $100 a gram for just the pure isolate. So yeah, the industry has drastically shifted. And how did that happen? That was all free market regulation. That was business to business and business to consumer regulations.
Mhm.
Essentially, guys like me, bro, I paid $12,000 for a kilo of isolate back then. Now I paid 15 times less.
Yeah.
And that's because, oh, whoops, give me 1 second. Sorry, my battery just died on my main camera. All right, we back. Let's get that on. Yeah, man, that was a part of the industry where all these newcomers were coming in. So people didn't know each other well enough yet. And if I'm not mistaken, I sold you that first kilo of isolate. Greg, yes, you did. And you sold it to me for an exponentially high price that I believe was around $12,000. It was $8,000, $12,000. I don't. It was a lot of money. And oh God, yeah. But back then too, it's important to note that there wasn't as easy of access. When Greg sold me that first kilo that I used to launch Specker with, it's important to know that I just got screwed over. Some other dude tried to take my money and run because he said he was connected to these big companies and he actually wasn't. The brokers, Robert, you remember how the brokerage was. It's, oh, I know this owner, I know that guy, and you don't know any of them. So now what's happened, like with the company that I work with, Zelios, they are a big time producer and I work directly with them. So that's what happened, is that a lot of these hemp extraction companies removed their middlemen, and they won't do that. They went straight B2B. And that's what really helped me. And I saw the prices just drastically dip as soon as that happened, because now I get to talk directly to the business. And he's like, $12,000? Like, what? No, I'd sell this to you for $900. Like, what do you mean? And I'm like, they're making that much money off of me. They're making that much of a middleman fee off of me. I was like, bro, this is criminal. Like, it's cool to take like a point or two off of me, but like $10,000, like, bro, you're taking a 10x added margin on me, like, bruh,
Usually you have the broker chain. It's like, I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who knows the manufacturer. So like everybody's taking 1%. So you end up with fucking these crazy ass numbers.
Yeah, the $2,000 kilo went, once it went three hands in. And then that's why a guy like me, which is the end of the line, by the time I needed my isolate, it's like, hey, where's my isolate? Oh, sorry, bro, they're still making it.
Yeah, no.
God, I've heard that. Sorry, bro, they're still making it. Like, hey, it doesn't take that long to make isolate, okay? I know how to make concentrates. It doesn't take that long. Like, you're lying. You don't have it. So, yeah, that was all done through free market regulations. We did not use any government. When I got frauded out of my money, I did not go to the government. I got all my money back, Look at where we're at now. Yep.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, and I wanted just to add to anyone in my community listening to what we were saying about the way he sources his vitamin E. I've known this guy for 5 years. I've never seen someone any more anal about sourcing their materials in the fucking planet Earth. All right, I'm a supply chain guy. Right, it's very serious. Okay, this guy goes to the fucking next level and make sure you guys get the most best ingredients. So like, check out his website. It's on his t-shirt, specker.com. All of that shit is the top of the line. You want high quality CBD products? That's where you go to get it. It's one of
Speckerhealth.com. Sadly, we don't have Specker.com yet, but I have an offer into the person who has Specker.com, and they will not accept my offer. So I keep going higher, and one day we're going to get Specker.com. But thank you so much for noticing that, bro. You know, as I'm an ingredients formulator, I have been for many years, and everything that I've learned in the cannabis industry over the last 10 plus years that I've been in it has led me to finding the top levels of the standards and then getting to the next level and just going so much exponentially higher. It makes my business much harder. I mean, having to source ingredients like that makes it exponentially more expensive for me. And it takes way more time to source all the different ingredients because no single source has every single ingredient up to my standard. So I'm constantly going here for the MCT, here for the vitamin E, here for the helichrysum, here for the lavender, here for the moringa, like here for the shea butter, you know, because every single ingredient needs to be above and beyond. And sadly, the supply chains of ingredients in general is not connected either.
No, yeah. And that's what, you know, that your struggles is what made me get into supply chains overall. Like, I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, and I realized that I'm really good at optimizing operations and driving efficiency. And I look at supply chains like, this shit is so crazy. Like how the world ships products and stuff like that, and you look a lot of times at your stuff like everything we see at the grocery store like just comes from Thailand and in China and Vietnam, like all across the world. Like, bro, we can't make like applesauce in America. Like, tell me. Like, we bought grass butter, right? You know where it's from? New Zealand. Like, you telling me there's no Texas farmer who can make some grass butter, bro? I'm like, this is crazy. And this is a very like super simple example, but like the whole point is like I can only imagine what it is like to source high quality ingredients from around the world as a, start a business. Insane. But at the same time, I think that's what makes your company so unique. And like of all companies I've been following for the past couple of years in the whole cannabis space, your brand has skyrocketed, bro. Like, I really love everything you've been doing, like going to the dance and like. You got the full package, honestly. Like, you got like the health athletes. I mean, athletes that are just obsessive with health on your team. That's the part I love the most. It's like to see you guys do this crazy ass shit. Hands are bleeding. Special lotion. 2 days later, I was like, whoa, this shit actually fucking works, dude. And like no one else is doing that. You know, that's why it's like I know you're gonna be up there, bro, for sure, 100%, just undoubtedly.
Thank you, bro. I really, truly am grateful that you noticed that I put in so much hard work on the back end. So it's really awesome to see and hear when other back end people see that, you know. So truly, like, that's the nicest compliment you could give me. Like, I'm like, oh shit, a supply chain guy sees what I'm. Oh, thank you.
Exactly. That's why I gotta let you know, like back end guys, bro. Gotta let you know, dude, you're fucking doing it.
Oh, thank you, bro. Thank you. And, you know, it also, I try to prove with my company that anybody can do what I do. You don't need to have multi-million-dollar funding. You know, you can do this by yourself. It doesn't take too much overhead as far as money goes. You just have to do a lot of things yourself that you would hire out if you have, you know, investment money. And I've self-funded Specker the entire way through sales and my cryptocurrency investments. So, you know, it's possible to have the highest quality ingredients without having the highest budgets. You know, you're going to lose time, you're going to lose money, but there's a reason that people constantly come to me and say, I tried every CBD product and nothing worked, but yours did. And there's a specific reason that happens, because I put in that due diligence to make things exponentially better than whatever the status quo can provide. And my prices aren't that much higher. It's really not that much harder for me to do it. It's just I have to research a little longer and go on different websites to source. So yeah, I lose time, but that time that I lose translates over into efficacy for the consumer. So I put in that time, it works better for the consumer. And that's something I'm trying to retain through the scaling process, which I'm sure you've seen a lot of in the industry, where a company scales and then they kind of hit this level here where they'll skyrocket, but they have to compromise on a handful of things. And then the next thing you know, you try their product and you're like, what the fuck? This isn't the same thing.
Yeah,
you know?
very easy example of that. Stacy's pita chips, I believe. The day I pull out the bag and it was like one layer. I was like, I remember when it first started, this shit was double layer. It was like extra crunchy. Now it's just like, we got like no fucking flour in it now. I was like, but yeah, this is an easy, great example. And honestly, like that's what I'm saying. You invested your time and money into making the highest quality product, right? How many thousands of CBD brands invested thousands of dollars so they can go to some hemp expo, then they market to everyone who already fucking knows about CBD and has their best buddy sells it? It's like fucking waste of money. You survive like the CBD collapse, dude. Like 90% of these companies just failed and they have nothing. Like,
hey, can we talk about that real quick? That's something that's happened on the back end of the cannabis industry, specifically with CBD companies, where through this coronavirus time, we've seen an era where what you just said, like that was my thought too, about 90% of finished CBD companies don't exist anymore compared to say 2 to 3 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, I remember I went to Hemp Expo 2018. That was like the peak of CBD. And it was like 90% CBD companies. I found like of 200 companies there, 90% CBD. I was like, bro, how do you feel comfortable in this space? Like there's so much competition.
Yeah, like everybody has drops. Everybody has the same product.
And they all just mix it with different fucking bullshit flavors. Like, oh, but we got strawberry. And like, well, and like, so does 100 here. So it's like, I hated the CBD space for that reason, because it was just like fake people, like thinking that because they found some miracle thing, it's like gold. Like now all of a sudden they're valuable, and not really investing like, wow, you're different. And that's what I'm saying. Like I went to all these expos, I went to all these companies, I asked them these questions, and like, and I always, and you were back home, right? And I always compare, it's like, dude, like until I see someone that's doing something like Amir, like just high level greens, doing all that stuff like that, you're trash. And I don't tell them like that way, but I try to let them know, like, I wouldn't keep doing what you're doing. I'll just like try to be nice and let them pit it. But yeah, now you go to hemp expos, it's probably closer to like 60-70% now are like fiber, actual like real hemp things, and maybe like 20-30% CBD. But even a lot of CBD guys had to pivot, either doing industrial scale, like I'm doing fucking crazy volume, or they're doing a lot of like minor cannabinoid stuff.
Yeah, like Delta 8.
Yeah, that's just crazy. That whole Delta 8 situation is insane, dude.
Okay, you know what? Yeah, that's something I want to talk about real quick too. I just found out that so much of the CBD isolate sales now, the majority, at least through my sources, of CBD isolate is not being used for CBD products anymore. It's being used to biosynthesize into Delta 8. So if you're watching this and you know what Delta 8 THC is, just know that this is not a natural cannabinoid. This is a biosynthesized cannabinoid through a chemistry process of adding a different compound with CBD isolate that converts it into Delta 8. So Delta 8 is not a natural cannabinoid.
Wow. That is fucking mind-blowing. That is mind-blowing. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it came out of nowhere. I was like, oh, here, there, and like everyone fucking had it. And I was like, what? How did like this happen? Like no one discovered Delta 8 before. But that makes a lot of sense now. It's because the market was already flooded with the CBD. All you had to do was change a little piece of it and make that. And people who don't know, like people try to sell Delta 8 as like, oh, it's a cross of CBD and THC. Bullshit. Delta 8 is because close you get to fucking Delta 9, maybe like 10-20% less. And so I was fucking knocked on my ass because of that. I was like, I went to a conference, like, oh, try Delta 8 gummies. Like, okay. And he sold to me that way. It's like, oh, CBD, THC. I'm like, okay, whatever. I took 2. in my fucking 30 minutes, and my eyes are blazing red, and my whole I'm like, oh my god, I'm high as fuck, and I'm in the middle of a conference, so I had to fucking go home and quit it that day.
Wow. Yeah,
That's wrong with
oh
it.
my God, I didn't know that's how people are marketing it. Like, oh, it's a cross between CBD and THC. Because like it's THC. It has affinity to binding to your cannabinoid receptors, just not as strong of an affinity as Delta 9. And now the new thing that they have is Delta 10. So essentially, these chemistry guys are now just figuring out how to biosynthesize all these different cannabinoids. But this is just a hallmark of prohibition as well. I mean, where is Delta 8 big? It's in all the states like Alabama where they can't have Delta 9. So, I would argue that that's the reason that we saw this drastic shift, because so many of these businesses realize like, oh, we could pretty much sell weed without selling weed.
Exactly. That's why really it took off, because it was, the law says Delta 9 THC is what's forbidden, and then okay, fuck it, make it 8 and 10.
Yeah.
But it's I saw THCO recently. Is that what you think about that?
Yeah, THCO. I saw that as well. Yeah, that's the new Delta 8 competitor. Is that the same? That's not Delta 10, is it? No, that's THC acetate, I think, is what it is.
I don't know. I just saw
acetate ester.
It's
so yes, that's what's happening. It's the same thing as, if you've been in the psychedelic space for 15, 20 years, you remember, the 2CBs and all the derivatives of the psychedelics that were experimental. So they're technically not but they make you trip like mushrooms or acid does, but it's technically not that, because the chemist just changed one or two things here and now it's legal. So all of this is just a hallmark of the drug war still existing. And if we did not have the drug war, everybody would get Delta 9 THC.
Yeah, exactly. And like me and Amir are both on the same page. Like, natural is always the best way to go. Like, we understand if you're in situations where like Delta 9 is not available, get Delta 8, all right, fine. But given choice, always stick to the natural derived cannabinoids.
Yeah, that's a big debate in the industry as well about biosynthetics, and full synthetics versus natural cannabinoids. And I'm currently under the belief that natural phytocannabinoids are the most superior cannabinoid style compared to biosynthetic or synthetic. I mean, the research that exists is becoming more clear about that as well.
Yeah, exactly. I'm again, like, I always believe in that there's a chi energy. There's always an energy that comes from the natural derived things, because there's things you can't capture in a chemistry lab. You can't see in a microscope that make it compounds what they are in their full effects. So always full spectrum is always a good.
Yeah, that's very true. And I mean, while there is legitimacy to biosynthesizing cannabinoids and synthesizing cannabinoids, like, I think the money that would be put in those areas should better be put into studying the minor cannabinoids that we already have in the plants, to better see how those interact with the endocannabinoid system. But I do see over the next decade or two, the synthetic cannabinoids will probably be used by pharmaceutical companies to target certain parts of your endocannabinoid system. And that's why we need so much more research on cannabinoids, is because there are over 180 phytocannabinoids that have been discovered so far. So why do we need to create synthetics when there are so many natural ones that we can look into first? But that's the split in the industry. That's also why I've been very slow to add new cannabinoids into the Specker line, because what I'm finding out is that so many of these new minor cannabinoids are being biosynthesized: CBC, CBE, THCV. They're biosynthesizing them. So while there is a new wave of cannabinoids in the market, I'm not really trying to get biosynthesized CBC. So that's another gap in the supply chain, is that like nobody really has an incentive to grow a hemp plant that's really dominant in some super minor cannabinoid yet. We've only just got to the point where people are growing CBG crops. And I would even argue that that's slowly fading away.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the biosynthesizing is just opening the whole game. I don't know what the cost is, the time, energy you got to put into biosynthesizing, what that's like. But yeah, it's crazy. I didn't know I knew I heard of TCV, I heard of CBC before. I didn't know it was biosynthesized. So I felt like there definitely should be some type of some type of marketing, not marketing, but like a logo, like designating natural derived versus synthesized.
That's so I learned this the hard way, because you're right. There is no dictation for what is what. If you don't ask the question, for example, I bought a multi-cannabinoid pack from this company, and I thought that they were all natural cannabinoids. I bought it, and then I asked, like, hey, are these natural? Because I don't think it is. And then he's like, no, this one and this one and this one are natural, but these are all biosynthesized. I'm like, bro, I wouldn't have fucking bought that shit if I knew it was biosynthesized. Like, come on, bro. So, and what are they biosynthesizing it from? Like CBD isolate. Like, it's mind blowing that they've been able to create so many different interactions. And it's important to know, these cannabinoids that I just mentioned don't have to be biosynthesized. They're just biosynthesizing them, which that's the issue I'm having. But it's also like an issue of, to grow a crop that's super high in THCV would cost too much money to get that type of bud and then extract that over, growing it on like a yeast sample or something like that,
Yeah, it makes sense. I feel like the biosynthesized versions could actually open the doorway to actually using these cannabinoids, because like I remember a year or so ago, like CBN, CBG, distillates upwards of $20,000-$50,000 per kilogram. So if they can make it a biosynthesized version of that at a fraction of the cost, maybe that's opening the doorway people to using it, understanding its effects, and as it brings the price down, maybe it makes more sense for farmers who can do that, to make that investment and do it at scale. Because it's not even just about bringing the price down; it's about bringing the volume. Like you need make sense, and it takes a lot of money to actually do the cross genetics you need to actually make these plants CBN dominant, CBG dominant. Actually, one of the ones I'm really excited about is CBN, because one of the biggest use cases for consuming cannabis is actually for falling asleep, and CBN being a sedative, I think actually is one of has plays play a really.
Have you used? Okay, let's talk about this. Have you used CBN isolate before by itself?
No.
Okay, so I bought a bunch of CBN isolate to do formulation experiments with. So I made different cannabinoid blend products. Like the one I really enjoyed was a blend of CBD, CBG, CBN, and CBC.
All of them.
Yeah, it was great. But this is what I noticed. CBN by itself is not a sedative. Like, I experimented myself at high doses. I gave some to friends to have them try it. And the research is clear too. CBN does not have an affinity for your cannabinoid receptors, just like CBD. But it arguably has a weaker affinity to whatever it is binding to. over CBD. So this was an interesting thing that I noticed from my experiments. And I probably will release a multi-cannabinoid blend product once these prices drop more, because CBN prices are still like 12 to 14,000 a kilo. CBG is dropping right now, but that's still like, 3,000, 2,000 a kilo. So essentially, if I made that product now, I wouldn't be able to give it to the consumer for a good enough price. But I think as a sleep aid, it didn't give me anything that a high dose of CBD didn't give me exponentially better. And when taken alone, I could not fall asleep.
Wow.
Very interesting point. I use CBD for sleep every night. Yeah. It always helps me fall asleep. The experimental nights that I had with just the CBN drops, I was literally laying in bed like, I can't, like, what the fuck? Why do I feel so awake right now? And that happened 3 days in a row just using CBN. And I was still using THC as well. So when I take THC and CBD together at the end of the night, that's a sedative. So in my mind, I was like, okay, therefore THC and CBN should work better. And it never did. And the anecdotal data I got from friends and family was the same. So same with CBG, to be honest. I didn't notice anything superior with CBG, and I did a lot of experimentation, a lot of self-experimentation, a lot of like making some and giving them to friends, and then like asking them a few weeks later, like, okay, compare this to this. The cannabinoids put together, it's great because essentially when I have a CBD, CBG, CBN blend, I create an entourage effect. So from a endocannabinoid system standpoint, if the CBD doesn't have affinity for something as strong, then that CBG or CBN is going to go and take its place. But as standalone isolates, and I even tried CBDA too. Like this whole CBDA is exponentially stronger than CBD. And I was like, I'm not feeling it. I'm trying, so that was a very, very interesting experience I had. And I experimented for like a year. Like the whole, like all of 2020 was an experiment, like kind of back end experimentation phase of using these different cannabinoids and trying to figure out what the next specker product that's not just a CBD product will be. And essentially where I've currently landed is like, I'm just going to keep the CBD. And like, if you want it to work better, like I was saying before, it's like use some cream, like use a better carrier. So I don't know. It's very interesting. I've even asked CBN people about it. Like, hey, like no bullshit. Do you notice that this is any better? And they're like, nah, to be honest, I don't. So,
wow.
It's great. It's great that it's there. I'm sure that and this is, going back at what I was talking about with pharmaceuticals. If we had more research on this, if we had more research on the cell activity of CBN versus CBD and CBG and some of these other minor cannabinoids, then we would better make products. Like on my side, I could then make a product that's like, oh, look, this minor cannabinoid actually does target breast cancer cells better than this cannabinoid does. But right now, the research is just like, CBN helps with this kind of cancer and this kind of cancer. And then you read the other research and you're like, CBD helps with the same things. And then CBG helps with the same thing. So for me, from that standpoint, I'm like, okay, well then why the fuck would I spend more money on my side and then charge the consumer more for something that I don't think works any better? But I do want to create a multi-cannabinoid blend product because mixing those cannabinoids together, there is something that is superior to that. The research is clear on that too. Like an entourage effect is going to work better than one compound by itself. But a thing the industry also needs to realize is that the entourage effect is not just a cannabinoid thing; it's an every compound thing. Like when you mix the right compounds together, they work better and longer. Like, so it's always so funny whenever I hear people like in the industry ranting about the entourage effect, about how it's like this wild science, and I'm like, yeah, if you mix moringa oil and CBD together too, you get an entourage effect as well. So like,
yeah, that's almost with everything. Like even with food, like don't just put salt. You gotta put multiple flavors and seasoning into like entourage effect of some sort.
Right,
but
right.
Your personal studies into cannabinoids is like super interesting. I think that's something that you could put a report out because again, like it's like there's so minimal of it. I only have like 1 or 2 pieces of documentation with all the cannabinoids and listing of benefits, and I think like you said, like yeah, there might be slight benefits to this one versus a CBD, but is it worth that price point at multiples of where CBD is at? And so I think it'd be super interesting for the consumers, for all consumers to really know about, and also very interesting that multi-cannabinoid kind of a product is super interesting. Something that we've never seen before. Most things are just isolate, so I think a very unique product. Love to try that out.
So essentially, my reasoning for creating the multi-cannabinoid blend is because I don't use full spectrum oils in my products. I use isolate, and I use isolate because, you know what distillate is. You know what distillate looks like in the full spectrum oil. It's fucking distillate, and it's disgusting, and it has a million impurities in it, and it's full of anti-nutrients and undesirable compounds that if the consumer saw it, they wouldn't be repping this whole full spectrum bullshit. So like, yes, does a full plant have more efficacy than a single compound in a plant? Yes. But as far as cleanliness goes and high quality ingredient goes, that's why I don't use that's why I don't use the full spectrum oils in my products. But that's also why I want to create my own full spectrum blend products with introducing like 5, 6, 7, 10, 12 different cannabinoids together. And then therefore you can get a full entourage effect, because right now this whole full spectrum thing, it's like, if you look at the lab test for a full spectrum oil, okay, say like 65% CBD, and then what's the rest? Like 0.2% CBN, 0.5% CBG, like 0.01% THC. So they're just residuals. Like, okay, I don't need like that. So that's my thing, is that I'm making like these are CBD drops. They're not CBD plus minor cannabinoid drops. If I did that, it would be a multi-cannabinoid product, and therefore it would have to have legitimate doses of each one of those cannabinoids to say that like those cannabinoids are doing as much as they should be doing. And while they do have affinity to your cells at those lower levels, if you really want that CBN and the CBG and the CBD to work with a true entourage effect, you would take the isolates and make you would create your own entourage effect, essentially.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think probably the biggest thing that most attractive to me is the lack of impurity. Like there's a lot of like plant matter, a bunch of other things inside of there that you probably don't want. And I think overall to the consumer, it's very important at the early stages to know exactly what you're getting, right? So like, oh, this makes you feel this way. Now I know I can build off of that.
Yeah, it's a consistency issue because every single full spectrum oil that I would source would have a different lab test. It's going to have a different ratio of minor cannabinoids. It's going to have a different ratio of terpenes. Even if they come from the same plant, it's still going to extract slightly differently, which means that you do not get consistency in your products anymore. And then a consumer is going to try it one day and it's going to be great. And then they're going to try the other batch the next day and it's not going to work because, oh, that batch of distillate that you just got is much higher in a certain anti-nutrient that's blocking compounds from absorbing. But the lab test you get doesn't test for anti-nutrients, so you'll never know. You know, and it tastes like shit too. So, you know, like as far as taste goes, like when your product tastes like shit, then, or it tastes like dirt and wine together, which is what distillate tastes like. You know, you don't have as much of a pleasurable experience. And when you are not happy taking something, your bioabsorption is not going to be as high either.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Anyway, bro, that was a great chat we just had there. We just went for about 90 minutes. That was a amazing chat. We covered hemp homes, hemp building, the different, you know, evolutions that we're seeing in the hemp industry. And we just finished off on talking about different phytocannabinoids, synthetic cannabinoids, biosynthetic cannabinoids. So we pretty much just touched on the entire overarching hemp industry that we currently are part of in 2021. And wow, it was very informative. Thank you for teaching me things that I did not know about this industry myself.
Likewise, brother. I mean, you are the cannabinoid guy. Honestly, I'll give it to you because, like I said, like you're really doing the research yourself and fucking like letting people know like this shit you're telling people doesn't work. And then again, you see how people like they're just like, oh yeah, here you go, here's the CBN. And like you're like, dude, this is so whack. And so I'm so glad, you know, you're leading the space and like actually making high quality products for the cannabis consumers. And I appreciate you, brother, for inviting me to this podcast or live. I don't really want to frame it. And yeah, I had a great time, bro. I would love to do this again.
Awesome. We will definitely do this again when we start doing our hemp building projects, which me and you will inevitably doing very soon. We will be reconvening on video for everybody to see what we have built with hemp homes and hemp everything else until this wonderful plant becomes the dominant thing in this world.
Exactamundo.
Awesome. Love you, bro. I'll talk to you soon. Have a great night.
Likewise, bro. Good night. Good night, everybody. Boom.